Is Galbrena going to end up being a bait pole? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Okay, so, how exactly can Galbrena be a bait pole when we already know so little about her? And what if she ends up being really strong? In that case, does she still really quantify his bait? Well, okay, that is exaggerating it a little bit, but I do think that you should consider carefully if you actually want to pull for this character or not, and there are a couple of reasons for that. The main thing that I want to illustrate is that Wuthering Waves 3.0 is literally right around the corner, and before that is Chisa. We obviously don't know how strong Chisa is going to end up being, but what I do know is that she is a very popular character and there is a lot of people that are going to be going after her. So if you want to get Chisa and you want to save for Wuthering Waves 3.0, perhaps investing into Galbrena isn't really going to be the best idea, and there are a couple of reasons for this. I will say that this is all very subject to change advice, and it's not really based on Galbrena herself and her own personal value, because after all, we literally don't have anything on her officially yet, and it's more so about her banner placement and the things that have been surrounding her. So, what do I mean by this? Well, we have recently gotten Augusta, who was a very strong DPS character, but is super accessible considering that Mortefi's a really good 4-star teammate for her, and not to mention that before that, we got Frolova, another really powerful DPS who's able to utilize the 4-star dungeon. We have been spoiled for choice with DPSs, and I feel like every patch we've gotten a really strong one, Augusta especially being cream of the crop, finally giving the Electro niche a very strong DPS, as it really needed. Obviously, Galbrena could end up being a second slot teammate instead. I just kinda doubt that because she was dripped first. Typically speaking, the first half banner always tends to be a DPS of some variety. You can literally look back through every Wuthering Waves patch, and that has genuinely always been the case. The one exception was Cantarella, but that makes sense because she was literally the new 5-star that was coming out that patch. And there was no other new 5-star to accompany her release, so that checks out. But basically every other time it has been a DPS. And when you consider how many DPSs we have, yeah. Now, I will say that if you don't already have 4 good teams for TOA, and you need another one, then maybe she is going to be worth investing in for you, but consider how close we are to Wuthering Waves 3.0. Do you really want to commit to investing into another whole new DPS, when we've got a new batch of characters that is going to be revealed to us in only a couple of weeks, to be honest? I personally expect them to drip those to us in like 1 or 2 months. I wouldn't expect it to be that far away. We saw the Renacita characters a good chunk before Renacita came out. I can't exactly remember the exact amount of time that we saw them before the actual region came out. I think it was a few weeks. Nothing insane, it wasn't like literally months before, but we did know about them in a good advance amount of time. So I do expect those new drips to be pretty soon. And with that in mind, and considering that we are going to be heading to a new region soon, is it really right to invest into another DPS at the minute? Because you should consider that DPSs want more investment than the average character. Especially more than ever recently, considering how they really want their signature weapon these days. Every wuwa DPS that is releasing really wants their sig more than the last one. This isn't always the case, and some do want their sig more than others, but it is pretty much a mainstay at this point that if you're pulling for a new DPS character, you ideally are able to get their best weapon to pair with them. Additionally, to add on to that, something that actually does have some basis, Galbrena is a fusion character. We already have triple fusion, and that team is unbelievably strong. I have a friend who was able to clear Dragon of Dirge, the fusion-resistant boss, using triple fusion, and he didn't even use any ridiculous gameplay techniques. He just played the team normally, and yet he still managed to do it because that's how strong the team is inherently speaking at the minute. It's amazing in Whimpering Wastes. Actually, it is the second best Whimpering Wastes team at the minute, which is a big deal when you consider how high HP is in that game mode currently, and it is ridiculously good in TOA as well. Triple fusion is an absolute monster at the minute. So whenever you consider that, what exactly is the point in getting another fusion if you've already fully invested into that team? And if you're not fully invested into that team, do you have at least 2 members of the core, whether that be Changli and Brand together, or Brand and Lupa? Whatever the case may be, if you've already got a pretty strong fusion core, you don't really need to go out of your way to invest into another fusion character. It is easily the element that has been treated the best in Wuthering Waves. I would ask you to consider that it's not just the triple fusion characters that exist. Encore is also literally the only good standard DPS. Every other standard DPS absolutely sucks. There's just not really any potential in the standard characters outside of Arena and Encore. To put into perspective how well Fusion has been treated, we have 2 very versatile flexible units, both in Changli and Brent Wuthering Waves with a signature, that are really good in such a multitude of teams. We have the only good standard DPS there. We have Lupa, who, while she's not as flexible as the other 2, she's still able to play very nicely with Encore and form the very powerful triple fusion team or just enable Brant to be a DPS, which is still a very formidable team comp. And we have Mortefi, a very powerful 4-star, who has recently gained even more value with the release of Augusta, and now we're getting Galbrena on top of that. And if she ends up being a strong release, that's amazing, but if you're already really invested into fusion characters, I genuinely do not see the reason for you to go out of your way to get Galbrena, especially considering what is coming up. And something else I really want to point out. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply to every new release. However, a large chunk of new characters do ideally really want their signature 5-star teammate. This isn't always the case, as in Augusta's situation, while Yuno is definitely a sizable increase for her, she gets by just fine with Mortefi, so this isn't some absolute requirement, don't get me wrong. However, I do expect that if Choyuan ends up being really good for Galbrena, consider the Law of Harmony set that's in the game right now. It literally doesn't have a user, so it is likely to be used by either one of them. Then I gotta ask you, do you actually have the resources to invest into DPS plus their best support right now before a new region and before very popular character releases? Now granted, that second one doesn't really matter if you're not a Chisa fan, and we don't know how strong Chisa is going to be. I'm not necessarily saying that Chisa is going to be this insane release that's going to be good for every single account. We literally don't know that yet. For all we know, she could end up being really niche, or she could end up being absolutely busted because of how many people like her. We literally do not know. But the fact of the matter is that I know that a lot of you are gunning after her, and if you really want her, well then you gotta be able to stay strong so you can ideally invest as much as you would please. Though obviously this is all flawed by the fact that we literally do not have any information on Galbrena officially right now. We don't know anything, and for all we know, she could end up being really strong. In that situation, is she worth investing into? I would say that if you don't already have really strong teams that are able to tackle TOA and Whimpering Wastes, well, we'll have to see if she's good in wuwa or not, that kind of depends. But either way, if you're lacking teams for your endgames, then sure, she is definitely going to be worth it, as any DPS is worth it, especially the newer ones. So yes, she would be worth it in that case. But if you're a veteran player, I genuinely don't think you're really going to need her that much, assuming that you already have some powerful modern teams. And even if your teams aren't that modern and you're still fine with your older DPSs, as long as you're still clearing comfortably with them and you're happy with your clears, then obviously you don't need her. Now, if you just like her and she's your favorite waifu, then obviously she's going to be good. And who knows, maybe you just don't care about Chisa and you're easily going to be able to skip her and just save up for the new region. That is also fine. And I would like to highlight, Wuthering Waves has an extremely generous pull count. They give a lot of pulls per patch. So realistically, it is not that unlikely that you'd be able to just get your Galbrena, skip Choyuan, and then get Chisa. Obviously, we don't know how much she is going to actually want Choyuan, if she is even going to want him at all. There have been cases where they have released a second slot in a patch that doesn't really work with the DPS of that patch. 2.1's a pretty good example. Phoebe was a great DPS, but she didn't really want to use Brant. Like, yeah, I guess you could if you really wanted to, but they didn't really have any direct synergy. So who knows, maybe that's not even going to be a burden on you. But I would say that the main thing here is we're gonna have to wait and see how self-sufficient is Galbrena. If she is as self-sufficient as Augusta, who is so fantastic on a really cheap setup, then sure, I think that it's honestly going to be a perfectly fine investment, and we're going to have to wait and see. But if she ends up being another character who really wants multiple pieces of gear in order to feel like she's at her top potential, then I genuinely think it will be better to hold off and see what the 3.0 characters are looking like, because it's not going to be that long until we get them revealed to us. Now, if you've been waiting for Galbrena from the beginning, you've skipped Augusta, Furlova, basically every other new DPS that has come out recently, and you don't have the triple fusion team, then I do think it's going to be likely that she's going to be a good investment. I would be surprised if not. 9 times out of 10, new characters in Wuthering Waves are excellently well balanced, and they are generally always worth pulling for. But in any case, this is just my warning to you to say, watch out. 3.0 is right around the corner. Do you have the resources to invest? Do you actually care about Galbrena that much? Yes, I know that she could end up having a very strong power level, but I would like to remind you that basically every 5-star in this game is good. If she's powerful, whoa, really? I could have never seen that coming. And if you have a triple fusion team, then you're basically sorted for that element. I don't really see the need to go out of your way to invest into another fusion character in such a case. And yes, if she does end up being ridiculously strong, like genuinely so much better than everyone else, perhaps I will be singing a different tune, but I think that if she's relatively in line with the other 2.x DPSs, and she's just another strong one to add to the pack, then I would say we're gonna have to wait and see her self-sufficiency levels. But if you do have the astrites to invest, then go for it, obviously, if you really want to. But either way, just be wary of the fact that we have some very popular characters coming out soon, and we do have a big region coming out soon. Obviously, whenever we get information soon, I'll be able to give some more genuinely objective points on whether she's worth getting or not, This is more so just me saying that she could end up being somewhat bait. You could make the argument that Chisa is technically the bait, because she's the popular one, but this is why I think that it's good to give an advance warning. That is a popular character that we're getting soon. So if you're somebody that has your eye on Chisa, but you're eyeing up Galbrena as well, just keep in mind, she might demand quite a bit of investment. Now, if she doesn't, that's great, we're gonna have to wait and see. But this is essentially me saying stay strong for your favorites or stay strong to see whoever the new characters are. If you're somebody that was saving for Galbrena from the beginning, then this video wasn't really for you because obviously you were always planning to get her. This is more so for people that are curious about the 3.x cast and they're curious about Chisa and they need some encouragement to stay strong. Hopefully this video is able to help you stay strong for whoever you're saving for. This has been Juice, signing out, and regardless, she does look really cool anyway, so I can't blame you if you do get her.